What's up, guys, and welcome to the Haunted Radio Show, the only YouTube channel guaranteed to promote paranormal activity wherever you might be. I'm your host, Luke Marone, and today I'm talking about a movie I just watched yesterday on Valentine's Day called The Collector. Released in 2009, written by Marcus Dunstan and Patrick Melton, who I believe wrote some of those later Saw movies. Marcus Dunstan is also the director of this movie, and I've got a bit to talk about the direction of this movie, which I thought was inspired, if not entirely successful. This movie caught my attention because it stars Josh Stewart, who I just saw on The Punisher. That was the first time. No, I had seen him. He plays the dad in the latest Insidious movie. Yeah, it's the Insidious franchise. He plays the dad in the most recent one. I liked him in that, but he was a real dirty character, real douche. He played a very cool and complex character on The Punisher, named John Pilgrim. A super cool character. He has a super cool story arc. I would definitely recommend checking out The Punisher. But I'm not here to talk about superheroes. That's my other YouTube channel. I'm here to talk about horror stuff, and The Collector is a horror movie. Originally, it was being shopped around as a prequel to Saw, and you definitely get that vibe. There's a lot of that sort of torture porn aesthetic here. But I honestly, I haven't even seen any of the Saw movies. I've watched a lot of sort of comprehensive recaps and like the dead meat kill counts. I am just a little too squeamish for those movies. I can't muster up any sort of courage to watch them. Not because they're scary, but just because they are so graphic. And I'm just not really into that. The Collector, I feel, was able to kind of give me the Saw experience with less graphic violence. It is still graphic and like uncomfortable to watch, but it isn't just people in traps being murdered. There's more of like, there's a little more hope of like, if you're smart enough, you can get out of it safely. You don't need to like cut off your leg to escape. That being said, the main character named Arkin, he does get his shit rocked pretty good throughout this movie. But it, like I said, there's still like at least the idea of the hope to get out of there unscathed. So I appreciate that. I think that makes it a little easier for me to watch. So if you are somebody who's always kind of been interested in Saw, but kind of didn't actually want to watch it, I would definitely recommend The Collector. I thought it was a great movie. Well, it was, yeah, it was pretty good. I think I would watch it again. And now I'm gonna start talking about it a little bit more. Starting with Josh Stewart as Arkin. I thought he was a very likable protagonist. The basic gist of this movie is that he is an ex-con. They kind of there's like a few lines of dialogue about that. It opens up with him working on the security for this wealthy family's home. He needs to pay his ex-wife some amount of money because she's in deep with the sharks. And so he comes up with this idea. He's going to go rob this place while the family is out of town. so that he can get the money to his ex-wife. So you're rooting for him. He's a thief with a heart of gold kind of thing. He's trying to do the right thing, but he's doing the wrong thing. So you kind of want to see him succeed. You kind of think he's uh maybe doesn't deserve it, which is, I think, a good place for your characters to be. It's not so black and white. We're dealing with shades of gray. That's about as complex as the script gets. It's pretty. It doesn't dig very deep, but the little bit that it does dig, I thought it managed to make a connection with the audience. Um, that might just be I'm a little bit biased because I like this guy, and I was kind of like looking for movies that he was in. But I don't know. Your mileage may vary. Let me know in the comments. So he gets into this house, and it turns out that the family never left for vacation. They got stuck in that house because there's a serial killer in the house, and he set up all these traps. Um, and I guess his whole gimmick is like you gotta work your way through the traps, and if you work your way through and survive, then he collects you into a red box. It's kind of silly, it's kind of dumb. The collector as a villain is much more forgettable than, say, Jigsaw. Um, he kind of just looks like the Gimp from Pulp Fiction, and he's got kind of like glowing eyes. There's some interest in that character. At least I had some interest in finding out more about this guy, but you never do. He's just a very bare bones kind of character. Um, yeah, there's really nothing much to say about him. It's kind of outlandish because it seems like Arkin kind of sneaks into the house and there's no traps, and in the 30 seconds it takes for him to find the safe and start cracking it, this dude shows up, and it seems like all the traps are put there. Um, but maybe they, like, I guess you're supposed to figure they were there before Arkin walked in, but you don't see any evidence of the traps. Maybe that's kind of the point, because they are subtle, so that they catch you by surprise. Um, but I just thought that was kind of silly. What's not silly is there's this great shot where Arkin is breaking into the safe and the collector arrives, and it's a very tense scene of him moving around. Up to this point, you don't know about any of the traps. You just know that there's somebody who's broken into the house, and there's somebody who um is either lives there or he's somebody else who's breaking into the house. So there's this great sequence where the camera's doing all these great shots, and Arkin is trying to avoid this new guy, the collector, and they're both just kind of walking around this house. There's a great shot of the camera. It's up above and it's looking down, so you see like over the walls, kind of like Pac-Man, and you see Arkin in one room and the collector in another, and they're kind of moving around. They're next to each other, but they're separated by a wall so they can't see each other. Stuff like that I thought was very good. There's also a great shot where Arkin is slowly walking down this hall, and he kind of turns towards the camera. So we're behind him. The camera's following him, and he kind of turns towards the camera to see if anybody's following him. And as he turns, uh, there's this lightning strike from outside, so the light illuminates. There's this wire net in front of him, and then obviously by the time he turns around, you can't see that net anymore. That was a very good shot. Stuff like that, where it's really ratcheting up the tension, is something I would have liked to see a lot more of in this movie. Very quickly, it sort of devolves, in my opinion, devolves into the whole People are just in very torturous positions. They're in these traps, they're getting killed, they're getting really fucked up. So that stuff, it's, I guess it's kind of enjoyable in that, like, Saw, like, you're just going to see some fucked up shit kind of way. But like I said, that stuff's not my cup of tea. I was really enjoying the. It kind of reminded me of A Quiet Place, that sort of like tension of like, fuck, you don't want these people to be moving this way because you know something that they don't. Um, or like, it's just tough to watch because you don't know how they're going to get out of these situations. Shots like that I thought were really cool. And this is kind of where I come in as an aspiring filmmaker and think this movie has such a great idea, and I feel like they took a very standard, like they just went with the torture porn kind of thing. uh Kind of like they took this great idea and just wasted it on a mediocre movie. So this is a movie I would very much like to, in like 10 years, God willing, I'm in the industry, uh, and I'm able to make horror movies. I've got plenty of my own original ideas, but I would also love to do a remake of this movie and really take the time to sort of establish the house as a character in the first like 10 minutes. Maybe have one of those like James Wan tracking shots that goes through the whole house and then show a little bit more of people walking around in it, because this movie's very choppy. The direction and the editing are very quick paced, it's quick cuts, and it's very tight shots on people all the time, like their faces filling up the whole frame. So you really don't get a sense of this location very well. And I feel that for a movie where you're trapped in this house and you're trying to find your way out and you're trying to navigate it without alerting the killer, it would have really benefited to just take the time and just plant this house in the audience's mind so they know where all the hallways are and what connects to what rooms and everything. Um, that, like, on paper that sounds kind of difficult, but we see that in like The Conjuring, directed by James Wan, where you really get a sense of that house that they're living in. Both of the Conjuring movies, actually. So that's something I would like to do. I'd like to kind of slow down the pace, because this thing just moves real quickly, and just kind of show you this house. So it just makes a lot more sense once they are kind of going through it. Because that scene I mentioned, the tense one where the collector and Arkin like don't necessarily know that where each other are and they're just moving around, that would probably be more intense if one, it wasn't all just quick cuts, and two, if it was you knew exactly where everything in this house was. So the so that's kind of how I feel about this movie. It's a great concept. I'd like to remake it. Um, I think the story's great. It just gets a little bit long. I was watching it with my girlfriend, and towards the end, we were both kind of like, all right, this should have been over 10 minutes ago. And then it went on for another 10. There's plenty of time towards the end that they really could have cut out. You don't need it. And it's got a twist ending, sort of. It's not even a twist ending, it's more of a shock ending. Really just ends the movie on a sour note. One, because it's not terribly great, and two, because it's depressing. So that's something that I could have done without, but there is a sequel, so maybe that's got the continuation of this and there's a happier ending. I don't know that this movie was good enough that I would watch the sequel. I think I'd like to watch this one again at some point. Um, I like how I started this video saying I would definitely watch it again, and I kind of talked myself out of it. I kind of went over all the good stuff, and I'm like, and then there's another like 80 minutes of stuff that isn't terribly good, so I'm not sure I want to subject myself to it. I think I've got it in my head enough that 10 years down the line, I'd like to remake this movie. Because I think it's got some serious potential. But the execution certainly left a little something to be desired. Yeah, that was kind of my Valentine's Day. We watched The Collector, and then we watched The Spirit. But once again, not a horror movie. That is a superhero movie, a guilty pleasure of mine. And we're here to talk about horror. It's kind of interesting how The Collector came out in 2009, and so did the Friday the 13th remake, which I talked about in my last episode. This definitely looks a lot fucking cheaper than Friday the 13th. A lot cheaper. I thought this movie came out in like 2005 based on the look, but 2009, evidently. If you've seen it, let me know what you think of The Collector. I'm getting my Patreon all set up. I think I'm going to launch it on Monday, so be on the lookout for that. And, yeah, that's it. Be sure to like, comment with what you thought of this movie, what you thought of my thoughts on this movie. And be sure to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you never miss an episode, which the episodes are released every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. What else do I gotta say? Yeah, just be on the lookout for that Patreon. You can get in touch with me here on the YouTube channel, on Twitter @ShowHaunted, or my Gmail, hauntedradioshow@gmail.com. Alright, so until next time, this has been the Haunted Radio Show, and I'm your host, Luke Marone, signing off. Peace out.